Hello everyone, back to the Puzzling Places Dev Chat. This is Dev Chat number 4, I believe. And this time we have something really fun to show you. This is the making of and the behind the scenes behind the Behind High Walls pack. That's a lot of behinds in a row. With me today is Shah, the art director and game designer behind Puzzling Places. And I am the typical host of the Dev Chats, Azad Balabanian. And I like to make puzzles. So, I was less involved on the puzzle making side here, more involved on the publishing and marketing side, which is why we have Shah here to tell us all about Behind High Walls. So this dev chat is going to be broken down into 3 sort of sections, probably with some things in the middle, but it's going to be talking about the history behind each puzzle, because there's like beautiful stories in each location. We're going to be showing the before and after of each puzzle because we took this, beautiful 3D scan and then we just really transformed them into these cinematic little experiences. And then we're also going to be revealing all the little hidden Easter eggs that were put into each place and also kind of talking about how they help with the story and whatnot. So, Shah, take it away.
Yeah, so since pretty much the beginning, every time someone plays a puzzle, they have been asking, where can I find out more about the location that I just puzzled? There is at least for me personally, a kind of we call it gamified mindfulness. Is like you really need to pay attention to the location in order to be able to puzzle it. And after a while, you develop a personal sense of relationship with the location, and you become really curious about what the location is about. So we have been meaning to do this since forever, but we never had the time. So now it's the first of its kind, where we actually do give you a bit of background on these locations, why they are there, why we have chosen them. There is actually a connecting historical link between these different locations. And I will be covering that. The stuff I will be talking about, they're my own. I really love history, so it's kind of like my own understanding of the history of these locations and also the research we have done when we are developing these things. Having said that, of course, it's not completely perfect, so do pardon us if we have like tiny inaccuracies here and there. We are not historians. We are just lovers of cultural heritage who happen to stumble in the puzzle game.
Yeah, and we're crafting a narrative, a story through these places. So yeah, this is not a history book per se.
Yeah, it's more like a fable of a history, I would say. But yeah, so I would start with the first location, I suppose. All the way on the right, got my shortcuts wrong, is Saba. Used to have a different name back in the days. I don't even remember what it was. But Saba is like this gorgeous location that kind of looks like out of this world. At the same time, it's very typical of the type of, let's say, Christian temples. Not temple is not the correct word for it. I would say it's church, but monastery. Exactly. Yeah. Christian monasteries you would find around all the way from like Greece to Turkey to the Middle East. And so I am going to be starting with talking about where these places are located. So we have the 4 locations. We have Saba, which used to be part of the Ottoman Empire. Then we have Sokol Grad, or the Sokol Fortress, which was part of the Ragusa Republic, nowadays Croatia. We have Alcázar of Segovia, which was a very important castle in Spain, or Spanish Habsburg Empire of back in the days. And we have Valdštejn, which was a feudal type of castle in the Holy Roman Empire. We are going to be covering these locations and their history in this order because there is a link between them, and I will be covering that link specifically. So yeah, Saba is a monastery, as we already said. One of the main things that I always used to ask myself back in the days was like, why do they look like this? Because it kind of does look like kind of a Gondor or like a Saint Michel or whatnot. The context behind it is that these places are not just a place of worship; they're also a place of defense and sanctuary. And the kind of a historical context that's important to know about Middle East at the time was after, let's say, the fall of the Caliphate. That would be the time known as the Wrath of the Khans, and as Genghis Khan invaded Middle East, things became really chaotic for a few centuries. You had like tribal people coming in constantly and attacking in that area. And segments of Anatolia became way too volatile for people to just live in. This, of course, kind of ended with the rise of the Ottoman Empire, but the Ottomans or the Osmans were also a Turkish emirate that also were waging war. So people started kind of going to these locations which have already existed. There have always been like monasteries and churches high in the mountains because of many reasons. One of them is Turkey has a very strong, and also the Eastern Christian Church has a very strong legacy of Hellenistic age. So the Greek gods used to have, some of them used to have their temples at the top of the mountain. You can think of like, Athens and all those famous places.
Yeah, Mount Olympus.
Mount Olympus, of course. So there has always been a historical like favorism towards holy places being into the mountains in around Anatolia. But on top of that, you also have the things that even in China, right, you have the idea that the holy man goes into the mountain into seclusion. And these places are very good for those. However, they weren't that populated before the wars that started happening in Middle East, because you would only have the holy man there. But for the bunch of the famous of the Greek monasteries during the invasion of the Turkmens, you had a bunch of like the normal people going up and start building these like expanding the monasteries. And you can always see that in all of them. Like it's just such a makeshift type of structure, right? Like it kind of feels like, okay, some guy used to live here and crap, some new people came in. Okay, so I guess I'm going to build a house there too. And they have even shrank over the years. Like one of the things that I realized first as I was puzzling this in 400 pieces is that there are also structures here. I didn't actually realize that as I was working on the mesh.
That's something I've also noticed, that even if you spend time in these places scanning them, and then you spend time on the photogrammetry and you fix them and all this stuff, but there's always little details that you only see when you're puzzling.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, as you can see, a lot of like these tiny, but it's like defense is a very important part of it, right? It was very important for people to be safe in those areas. That's not typical of, let's say, and I suppose we can compare it to another puzzle we have in our base game, Saint Michel. Saint Michel is also a defense in structure, as during the 100 Years' War, that was the last place in the Normandy and in northern France, which the British couldn't conquer, and it remained a bane in their existence the entire time of the time they spent in northern France. So yeah, Marsaba, and this is the main church, as you can see. One fun detail about this is that this is one of the last of the major monasteries which really sticks to its own traditions. Like they are really doing things as they still used to. For example, women are not allowed anywhere in this complex, which sucks if you're one. But they do have a tower, which is called the Women's Tower.
Wow, it's not even inside. Okay.
It's not even inside now. This is the Women's Tower, which the funny part is our sound designer, Pierre-Marie, has done some sounds there, because at the beginning he wanted to do a lot of like vocals with like core and also feminine voice singing in the Marsaba itself. But after realizing, oh, okay, that's not authentic to the actual history of the place, he started adding the sounds there. So Marsaba is an important location, let's say historically, because it is a important icon of Christianity, or at least the Eastern Church, within a very Muslim empire, the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire, it also showcases a very important part of the Ottoman Empire's political structure, which is made out of cultural, historical, religious, and ethnic diversity, right? And that's something you see everywhere, from their territories in the Balkans to Northern Africa to Middle East. And just the fact that these structures could coexist with the rest, but I say coexist in quotation mark because obviously they didn't all the time, otherwise they wouldn't need all these strong fortifications, just goes to say a lot about the political system of the Ottoman Empire. The relationships between Christianity and especially this specific place and the Sultan improved massively by the time of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, as he's known in the West, because he was a lot more tolerant towards diversity of beliefs. And interesting enough, let's say the head priest of Marsaba was closer politically, usually with Istanbul, than with the patriarch of the Eastern Church in a place like Jerusalem. So yeah, that was Marsaba. From Marsaba, I would like to then continue talking about the Sokol fortress. So as you can see, the Sokol fortress was part of the Ragusa Republic, but officially Ragusa Republic was kind of within the, let's say, political domain of the Ottoman Empire. Kind of, not really. Ragusa Republic is one of those names that is not all that well known to, let's say, people who are not really into history, which is a shame because just like Venice, it was a very important sea empire, I would even say, that at some point was incredibly wealthy. So one of the main selling point of the Ottoman Empire and why it was so strong was the Ottoman Empire managed to completely block east from the west. So it kind of continued the tradition or the power which the Caliph used to have. And that was important because a lot of very popular commodity used to came from the east, right? So you had the spices, which was the biggest thing. And then you had silk. Silks were produced by the Chinese, but also by the Armenian, for example, also in northern Iran. But the spices was one of the main thing that came. And since the 12th century, you also had porcelain, for example, coming from the Ming Dynasty. And at the time, this is still before the Portuguese went around the Cape of Good Hope. So at the time, the only way to go to the Far East was through the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire really capitalized on that. And it was the biggest and mightiest power of its time, also militarily. So what I suppose you would see right now happening with powerful countries of today, where they sanction other countries, Ottoman Empire used to do that too. So then you had countries like, well, Venice and Ragusa Republic, which were used to kind of go around these sanctions and actually still deal with those people. So where does Sokol Grad comes to this? Sokol Grad is like a watch post built in Ottoman Empire between the border of the Ottoman Empire and the Ragusa Republic. And it kind of like signifies the relationship between these two different powers. And the relationship they had was the Ottoman Empire kind of like leaves Ragusa to be, or kind of give them favorable trade conditions. And Ragusa Republic is kind of like the portal with which the Ottoman Empire can kind of trade with empires like the Habsburg Empire, which they were officially in war with. So that was kind of like the system they had. Okay, let's have a look at the location. So yeah, the thing that I really want to do with this location is that this is from nowadays. This fortress itself was actually destroyed as it was abandoned after a while. We will go more into the case of why that's the case. As Ottoman Empire started losing power, and as the Portuguese went around the Cape of Good Hope, these trade routes between the east and the west wasn't necessarily going through the same path. So Venice and the Ragusa Republic started losing a lot of importance. So the fortress was pretty much abandoned. And as is the case, or the tradition around that area is, once the fortress is abandoned, the stones are used to build the villages around. So by the time, let's say, by the time Napoleon was already around on that area, the French started coming in. The fortress wasn't there anymore. So one of the things that is really beautiful with this fortress is that it is a reconstruction technically, and it's incredibly clean. And I just had a look at this, and I was like, we need to puzzle this. This is probably the sharpest puzzle we have beside the kimono, and I knew that people are really going to enjoy it. So yeah, that's the Sokol fortress, a fortress from the Ragusa Republic.
Do you want to briefly mention what Sokol means?
The eagle,
yeah,
or
falcon, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess we'll get into in a little bit after in the next section of the video.
We shall. And also in sound design, of course, we played with that. We didn't just, of course, this was all kind of planned.
Fun fact also, there's like, when I was looking up about Sokol, this Sokol fortress, I came across quite a few of them. And so it seems like there's a few Sokol or like falcon sort of fortresses throughout the Balkans here. So this one is particularly in Croatia, but I think there's a few in Bosnia, and just kind of like spread around the Balkans. But yeah, this one specifically is, I'll have to look for the city name, but it's next to Dubrovnik, if anyone's curious.
Yeah, Dubrovnik is the other name of the Ragusa Republic. In case someone comes actually from the region, they would know it better on that name. I mean, there's a historical reason for that, right? Because just like Venice, these were sea powers. Like they didn't have land power. And that's why they needed a partnership of something like the Ottoman Empire in order to be able to ensure no one's going to invade them from the land, because they were such rich segments that, of course, a lot of people had interest in doing so. And these posts are kind of to give maybe early warnings for stuff like that, or just establish political relationships and trade routes with greater powers that are land powers. So so we are kind of like moving from east to west, and so the thing that I'm kind of trying to build here is this historical line of a power transfer from the east slowly to the west and then to northern Europe. And of course, history comes from a bunch of different perspectives depending on how you look at it, right? You see a different story, and that's the beauty of it. The specific story I'm looking into is the story of the trade route, right, and how that changed everything. You had something like an Ottoman Empire, which was the legacy of the Khalifa, which overtook a massive landmass that had different cultures and different histories, different ethnicity, different religion, kind of combined them to like this giant machine of political systems, which started interacting with the Western powers through something like the Ragusa. And the theme for the Sokol Grad, or the Sokol Fortress, as I will cover later in the second segment of our dev chat, was legacy of like the past power, glory lost. That's what kind of what it was. So if that was glory lost, the next location, which is Alcázar, is the actual living glory. And you could say, like in some metaphorical sense, the glory was stolen from that location and was transferred to Spain. So yeah, let's have a look at this beautiful castle, which I genuinely think is breathtakingly stunning. So some people might recognize this because Disney took a lot of inspiration from this castle for a bunch of their properties. And so the historical context of this place, we should maybe talk a bit about what Spain was. So Spain was kind of like split with the Moors. That was a remnant of the Umayyad Caliphate, which moved to southern Iberian Peninsula as the Abbasids threw them out. And they were, I would say, very high civilization in terms of like, sophisticated architecture and stuff like that. So Spain had a good starting point in terms of workforces and craftsmen and stuff like that. And the only thing that was lacking was kind of unity, because it was kind of this fragmented. And one of the first things that the Crusade did, one of the only things that the Crusade actually managed to do, was help to unify the Iberian Peninsula. So there are two famous historical characters from that story. And by the way, a side story which I didn't mention with the Ragusa was another link that connects Ragusa and Istanbul together, the capital of the Ottoman Empire, is that by the third or fourth crusade, I believe, Venice sponsored a crusade to just go and sack Constantinople. And they just on the way sacked Ragusa too, just to undermine their trading opposition or competition. So yeah, back to the main story. So you have two important historical characters known as the Christian monarchs. That's Isabella and Ferdinand. These two are famous because they kind of managed to centralize a lot of powers in Spain. They financed Columbus going to America. They also continue financing a Portuguese navigator to go around the globe, go around the Pacific and reach the Indies from the other side. And their son continued to, like the lineage continued to create an incredibly powerful empire. If you look at the map, you will see that I marked the Habsburg Empire to be kind of two locations, right? You have Spain, and then you have northern Germany and even Netherlands, and theoretically even all the way up to southern Italy. The way that happened was there was this guy called Maximilian I. That was the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. He loved diplomacy through marriage, so he started like marrying a bunch of people together. And through all these things, by the time Charles V or Charles the Great, his grandson, came to power, he was the ruler of Netherlands, the ruler of Spain. So, and through that, the ruler of almost the entire Southern and Central America, and the ruler of the Holy Roman Empire. And this guy becomes a very important character. And the way that it connects to Alcázar is that the Alcázar was the seat of power for the Habsburg Spain. Starts with Isabella already. Isabella, kind of like through the support of the castle, became the actual queen candidate and came to rule Spain. But Charles V was here also many times, and important decisions were made here. But even more important, that from the time of Philip II or Philip I of Portugal, which was Charles' son, which, like the Archelaus, Charles splits his empire in two: the Spanish side and the Holy Roman Empire side. And this came to be the official seat of the Habsburg Spain afterwards. And at that time, you can kind of know that Spain was probably one of the most important forces in the world around them, politically speaking, because they had the entire Southern America and they had an incredibly strong naval force. And in case someone knows of the famous story, I suppose the British would know, where the Spanish lost their armada versus the British. It was in these very holes, probably, that the king got to know that his fleet was lost. So yeah, this is the location. The reason why I said...
Can you look at it from top down, maybe, if we can see the courtyard inside?
Yeah. The reason why I say this kind of like told the glory of both the Ottomans and, let's say, Ragusa, and kind of made that fortress, the Ragusa fortress, irrelevant, is because the moment the Portuguese... So there was this competition between the Portuguese and the Spanish in getting to the Indies, right? For whatever reason, people massively overestimated how much time you need or how much effort you need to get to China from Europe on land. So they were convinced you either go through the Ottoman Empire or you have to go around Africa, which no one knew how large it was. And you had a guy like Columbus who was just politically very motivated to say, okay, we can go around the globe. They were massively underestimating how large the earth is. If they knew how large the earth is, no one would try to cross Pacific. That would be an insane task. But there was a very important reason why Isabella and Ferdinand wanted to go around the globe, is because these are the Christian monarchs, right? They are extremely Christian. And the Pope says, let's split the New World into sections. One section goes to Portugal, and another section goes to Spain. And the important part of that is the Spanish are only allowed to sail in one direction from there towards the Indies. So the Spanish are religiously not allowed to go around Africa, even when you realize and the trade route is there. But they have to go around the Pacific to get to the Indies. And that's what they end up doing, which was with insane costs. Also didn't make much sense because around the Cape of Good Hope. And the Dutch didn't care, because they weren't Christian. I mean, they were, but they were reformists. And so that's kind of the point, is that these two empires, like, let's say, the Portuguese Sea Empire and the Habsburg one, by kind of finding different trade routes to the Indies, they kind of started undermining one of the main important revenue sources of Ragusa Republic, Venice, and also the Ottomans. And that was the theme that I was kind of going for, connecting them together, was that the glory of this location is the past glory of the other. It was a very important transfer of power. So yeah, through that we go to the other side of the Habsburg Empire. As I already said, after Charles V dies, he splits his empire, like Diocletian, that is split like Western and Eastern Roman Empire, to the Spanish side of the Habsburg Empire and the Romanic side. The problem there was the Spanish side was very everyone was Christian because they threw the Jews out and they killed the Muslims. So they got rid of that problem in a very who doesn't know the story of Inquisition? But that wasn't what was happening in the Habsburg Empire and on the Holy Roman Empire side. So for centuries, people were kind of fed up with a lot of the corruption that the church had in the Holy Roman Empire, and this led to after Charles V gives the Roman Empire size to his brother Ferdinand, and he becomes the new Holy Roman emperor. There's a lot of tension between the people who kind of wanted to reform. That would be someone like Martin Luther King. No, not the king, Martin Luther. who lived around the same time he actually met Charles. And so these would be people like Brandenburg, the beautiful place we are streaming from right now, and Netherlands and Belgium. They all wanted to have like a reform program going on. And whereas the southern part, which was tightly in the control of the church, didn't want to have that. This led to the bloodiest war in Europe before the First World War, called the 30 Years' War. And this led also to the rise of a power of a family called the Waldštejn, because the Waldsteins were, like, one of the Waldsteins becomes a very famous and important general who helps to put back together basically the ruined Germany. And that's their castle. So obviously not everything there is from the 16th century. Things were built on top later. But the thing that's really lovely about this location is that you can really see it's like a hold of a local feudal lord, right? It doesn't need to have the same like diversity of defense that Saba has, or it doesn't need to have the grandeur of something like Alcázar. It's really focused on having like a little, control point for the villages around. So this is nowadays located in Czech Republic, in the Bohemian Paradise, I think it's called.
Yes. This was news to me that there is such a place called Bohemian Paradise. Yes.
Bohemian National Park. So yeah, and the area around it is like famous for creating crystals and stuff like that. Things that we're probably doing back in the days too. And so you had this general guy who was from the Valdštejn family, and the Valdštejn family was also split between some people who were going for reforms and some people who didn't want the reforms. And basically after the war was done, the other part of the family was either executed or threw out or had to flee to the north. And the palace was, the castle was like handed down to this guy. Another thing that's kind of like unique about this family, it's a fun little fact, is that they were one of the main patrons of Beethoven, right? And Beethoven actually has a sonata dedicated to them called the Waldstein Sonata. And yeah, this would be the seat of their place, I suppose. They would be sitting there and receiving their sonata from Beethoven. So yeah, the thing that's and we will, as we go over the Easter eggs, we'll be talking a bit more also in the dev chat of like why we have like a 1920 car there and stuff like that. Like this is all about the art direction side of things. But the thing with the location itself is it's like the last part of that trail that I talked about in terms of the trade routes, right? So as the Spanish lose their armada, they lose the war against the British, and reforms happen, like the 30-year war reforms happens. You have countries like Netherlands, you have like Northern Germany, you have England, that start to kind of like break free from these old traditions of the church and the state and the cleric. They start developing more, let's say, what later becomes known as the British liberalism. England had its own brand of how it got there, and that also had something to do with Charles, because Charles had the Pope basically kidnapped in a house, and the King of England was like, I want to divorce my wife, and Charles was like, no way, that's my nephew, or it's like a family member of Charles. And then he was like, okay, then we are not Catholic anymore. So this was a very important moment. These all were like critical junctions for the history of Europe, which kind of led to a transfer of power from Middle East slowly to Iberian Peninsula and the southern, like let's say northern Italy, and slowly just moving it up through a reform program. There are areas of Europe that had a lot of strong centralized power centers, didn't manage to reform in time, right? They didn't manage to reform in time all the way until Napoleon. As a matter of fact, the Holy Roman Empire actually ended by the time Napoleon came in, because they were too terrified that Napoleon is going to take the title of the Holy Roman Emperor for himself. So, and that led to, well, what we have now, which is very relevant even to today's history or politics.
Nice.
So, yeah.
I'm going to suggest that for this next section, where we go through the art direction and the Easter eggs, maybe we start backwards. So we start with this puzzle right here, and then we go all the way back to our Saba. What do you think?
Okay. Sounds good. So yeah, let's talk about the Easter eggs, I suppose. Nice. Yeah, I'm wondering if we should do that in the art direction maybe first. I can show the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, what should we do?
So, well, the Easter eggs. Yeah, let's start with the art direction, and we'll come back to the Easter eggs. So let's keep people hanging on for fun secrets at the end.
So yeah, I had to kind of make sure that I don't spoil people with our next puzzles. This is our board, basically. It's our DLC board, right? We have thousands of meshes. Like we have a lot of places we can do, and we really have to be selective about the stories we want to tell. And for the premium, one of the things we wanted to do was see if we can like enhance the story of the location a bit to tell it in a way that is not possible to scan, right? Because as you might have noticed, is like there are things in the scan that are just impossible to have through photogrammetry, and we wanted to have that. So it kind of started with us kind of choosing a few locations, right? We actually thought about including this as like an extra free one, but it would have been too much work, and it wasn't up to quality, and it would have been confusing to communicate. But we were kind of like between the two of them, and we actually ended up releasing this on a monthly because it's a really fun puzzle. I think people really enjoyed it anyway. So the part of the process for the new one was like I would look at these meshes and I would try to come up with themes, like connecting ones, right? And I would try to come up with emotions. So this is very typical way of producing films or comics or whatnot, is you create a mood board or a production board that tells you things. Like, for example, what we didn't end up doing with Castle Brand, because we also had that in Patreon before, was I really wanted to, have like that floating castle type of vibe in it, because this is the Dracula castle. I want to kind of have a twist on it to make it very wholesome. For Masaba, I grew up in Iran and we love to go on mountain climbing. And Marsaba like really hits me on the nostalgia part, because this is how Middle East looks for like 3-4 weeks in the spring, right? When everything is perfect. So I was really trying to go for that feel, trying to capture that childhood feel of like looking at these nature locations, being a very small part of a bigger world, right? You just losing the sense of self. So you might see through our board a bunch of my art books. Like I love collecting art books, and one of the things I do for productions is I'm just like, okay, I will look at this. I want a certain idea, and I know already a bunch of paintings that achieve that. So I kind of like take pictures of them and put them on our board, and from that we start like getting, our yeah. The castle was very inspired by Alcázar. And one of the unique things I didn't mention with Alcázar architecture is it has kind of a Romanesque type of architecture, because again they were very Christian. But at the same time, when you look at the patterns, it has a lot of Islamic patterns, and that's something true of even today's Spain and Portugal. Is like it's very heavily influenced by the Islamic culture, but with its own twist of Christianity put on top, right? Yeah, so for this one, for example, one of the things that I was really interested in was like showcasing the lives of like the people there. That was true also for Waldštejn, but here it was like, I don't know, I looked at that and I remember like the old games like Commandos, where people would just kind of be around. So I wonder if you can tell like tiny stories by just placing people around. This is from one of our favorite games, me and Daniel, another guy in the team. Robin Hood and the Legend of Sherwood. This is that style of commando style game. I kind of took a bunch of those as reference. Like, can we play as these guys just like being around doing their daily life to kind of like showcase, kind of gamify the location. And Waldštejn was a really fun one because Waldštejn had a lot of stories. Like the location stuff is pretty insane. Like one of the things that just still blows my mind is like even puzzling it is like you look at every corner and there's like a little story everywhere. And it's the type of place that I would have loved to go to as a child with another child so that we can kind of like play together, like hide and seek or whatnot. Because a lot of these areas are like pretty nuts.
I love
So
this little middle section there with this like
yeah,
two bridges on the side.
it is lovely. I can just imagine myself as a 7-year-old trying to climb those rocks and get to the top and down again, stuff like that. So we were kind of like thinking of adding like a lot of tiny stories to it. Of course, we don't have the production budget to do something like this. That would be nuts. So we decided to kind of like intensify the density of stories in certain area and leave certain area more empty, kind of at least create some of that feel. another one from my art books, Tintin. Like I just looked at like where stuff are happening, right? This is from what is it called in English? The Swan Princess. Yeah, I think it's called the Swan Princess.
Is it a
What's the name?
Disney? Is it a Disney
Yeah,
thing?
it's the name of the Tchaikovsky opera. I think this one. The Swan Princess.
It'll come to me.
Yeah. So basically, the thing with Waldštejn was I didn't want to tell the story of the lords who were living there. I want to kind of tell the story of the tiny, like the actual servants who have to take care of the location, right? And it's something like that sequence specifically.
It's
And I have
Sleeping
more of
Beauty,
it.
by the way. Sorry.
No, not Sleeping Beauty. The other one,
No.
the one that turns to a swan.
Oh, I don't know that one then.
So yeah, as you can see, like I actually took this shot because they were also incredibly influenced by the Bohemian stuff. So I kind of took this shot of like people are kind of going around about their days doing things. And this is for the trees because we had to come up with a way to include some of the trees to keep that vibe. We actually ended up not using that many trees because of time budget reasons, but we were planning to do way more trees. Maybe for better or worse, we didn't. I don't know. So yeah, we had, and then there came the idea of like, okay, what do we do there? And how do we want to tell the stories of people who are living there. But the thing I really liked about Waldštejn was it's like so iconically like old in the sense that, you know, it's like Disney-esque old. I wanted to contrast that with something more modern, but completely modern would be boring. I didn't want to have just tourists walking around. So I decided to like, okay, let's go with something like maybe 1920-ish. Like let's say Art Deco is going on. It's around the First World War. You still have like these old Herren, like these old lordships in Europe, and they're still very important. But you have things like jazz going on, and you have like so bicycles are around. So yeah, we decided to set it in that time to kind of create this contrast. And I have to say, I love what our sound designer did with it at the end. He ended up taking that also to the next level and creating that contrast. Yeah, the last part was Sokol. This one I'm not going to cover because we didn't end up doing, but we were going to do basically, there's going to be a party inside and just like that time where the day is just about to set and the night is just about to come out. So yeah, we're talking about Sokol, and I really want to do this like past glory type of thing. So a feeling of you look at it and you understand that power is not permanent, kind of like impermanence of power and glory. That's kind of what I wanted to cover. And yeah, again, I went through like my repertoire of art books, and Japanese are really good at this for some reason. And took out some paintings, went on a walk in Berlin, and just took a bunch of pictures in the golden hour and tried to kind of like understand what makes this feel, like what makes this tick. And we kind of took that abstraction and we tried to apply that specifically to the puzzle itself. And yeah, so that was pretty much art direction side of things.
So something having to do with this sunset lighting with occluded shadows and like a really high contrast between the sunlight and the shadow.
Yeah.
A little mysterious, makes you think about what was there or what is there today.
Yeah, exactly. And also sunset is usually associated with death, but it's also beauty, right? So it's death, reborn, beauty, and stuff like that. So I was really looking forward to that. I'm happy with how that one turned out.
Before we do the Easter eggs, let's do a quick maybe before and after in showing the mesh, like especially the Sokol Grad one as you had open. Just to show you also how all this mood board that Shah and like the references that he's using, how they influenced the mesh as it was the 3D scan into created this beautiful little environment.
That sounds fantastic. For whatever reason, the video refuses to open.
There we go.
So yeah, one of the things that was important for us was to try to like, there was this like mesh we did in Patreon. It was called The Violinist. It was Strauss in Vienna. It was like a Strauss fountain, it was called. And one of the problem there is like when we relight locations, they become too dark. because lighting goes through, right? Some areas become unplayable because they're too dark. So one of the things I want to try out in this premium was to kind of ensure that no place gets too dark. So what we did was we didn't actually light these places up. We kind of created masks of where we think light should hit. And on this specific area, I mean, this is also done, of course, automatically. On this specific area, then I use Photoshop to kind of adjust the colors, kind of like in a more like as if I would paint it, to how the mood I wanted to have, and then apply these color variations to the puzzle. So it's not really lighting; it's a little trick to make sure I have 100% control. And you can see in areas like this, even though it goes into darkness, right, it is still within the range of visible puzzles, and that was kind of like the idea. You will be seeing more of that. I'm happy that people are happy with it. Like,
Yeah.
When talking to some, they might not even realize that any CG lighting was done on it, which was perfect. It was kind of like what we want to go for.
Yeah.
And Sokol Grad specifically is very heavily modified, but we have plans for variations that are not even modified. Like, you would not notice at all that the lighting is there, and it works really well for the puzzling mechanic.
Yeah, these were all things that we've been learning over the years of making these puzzles, is like how to take something, how to change it, and then now the latest thing is like, okay, how do we change it without really making it harder, like Shah said, making things too dark. So that's almost like a movie thing, like a lighting, like in movies when they shoot dark scenes, like in a bedroom when all the lights are turned off, it's never black or it's never dark. It's typically just like dark blue, and in fact they have real blue lights that are being cast in the room, but it's this like idea of darkness without it actually being very dark. So we're using techniques like that here to really create like a very different time of lighting. Maybe also Saba would be interesting to showcase here, that like there's this sort of spotlight, or it looks like there's clouds moving overhead and the sun is piercing through certain spots in the cloud.
Yeah, like the original Marsaba mesh we had, we decided, of course, to fix this. Let's get that in. One of the things that I realized would be kind of necessary to have this beacon of humanity, or like nature and then a humanist structure, which is one of the things that's so attractive about these Greek monasteries, was the lighting, right? So you would have to have this very dramatic lighting, and at the same time we didn't want to make the areas too dark, because as you can see, this is already shot in a like Middle Eastern sun. Middle Eastern sun is brutal, man. Like, shadows are shadows, and sunlight is sunlight. And we kind of like wanted to bring in a bit of that like lighting, and we ended up doing that by, again, the same technique. We apply a mask around the corner to kind of gradually draw the eye towards this location, to kind of create a feeling of citadel, like a feeling of holiness, but at the same time, we maintain a lot of the surrounding with the aim to make sure that nature becomes still a dominant theme, right? So it's about man and nature, and and the shadows. I actually had a prototype where shadows move, like the clouds are moving, and we thought about putting it in a puzzle, but we didn't have much time, unfortunately, for that. We did end up adding the flags in Alcázar, which was very fun to do. And we have some more of those coming up in the free puzzle.
Yes, exactly. So this is what we mean by, like, we're learning. As every time we make a puzzle, we're really learning new things. We're also developing tools to make these things. So, you know, this premium pack, this was our first real, let's say, premium pack ever since we created the monthlies and the premiums, where we wanted to go extra with all these CG elements, and we had to develop a lot of things for that. So perhaps in the future this would actually take less time, but now it gives us, you know, more time to experiment with new elements. So if we'd love to hear a little bit about, like, did our work come through? Did the enjoyment, you know, come through? And did you think this was like a really special pack compared to like the monthly things? Let us know in the event chat channel on Discord, or if this is on YouTube, just leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear.
Yeah. So yeah, one of the things that of course happens also is regarding sound direction, which is a very important part of our puzzles, especially the premium puzzles, because the monthly puzzles don't have these localized sounds. Sometimes it's hard to add sounds for a sound designer because not much is going on, right? But these productions are then done together with him. So in the sense that at the beginning, when I go through these locations and I come up with a mood board, then I talk to him, and then we end up having a plan for how to best create these elements so that he can really tell a story as well, sound-wise. Again, we shall see more of that in the future. Should I start doing the Easter eggs?
Let's jump into the Easter eggs. Oh boy.
So let's see. I suppose the first one is Alcázar. Yeah, it is Alcázar.
It is worth mentioning, we have dropped Easter eggs and other things before. We just haven't really...
We haven't really mentioned them.
We haven't really mentioned it, so I'm curious if people find them.
So, let's see. The obvious one is the horse guy. Who doesn't love the horse guy? You had to go through some iterations here because the first one was too medieval. You ended up changing it a bit. And then you have a bunch of the soldiers. I'm not going to go over every soldier, I think, because I might miss one. I will try, but I might miss one. So yeah, you have the soldiers going around. Again, the way we kind of placed them was like thinking this kind of like a commando style game or Robin Hood game, and you just place them. One of the fun things here is, as you can see, they have shadows, right? And the shadows are hand painted. This thing also had a lot of hand painting, actually. You have a guy here taking his lunch break. He's just having an apple. Up there, you have a guy who got lucky on the duty. He got the best position, and he's kind of like checking out what's going on down there. I mean, this structure is insane. I was just playing the 400 piece on the last weekend, and it's just like it's pretty nuts. Yeah, we have the lady who is reading a book here, or a paper, whatever. So here comes. Okay, I'm gonna leave the best for last because I don't think anyone actually got that Easter egg. I don't think.
Yeah, leave that one.
Another guy who's just chilling. You have the captain coming and changing shifts with the other guys. Here's a good example, for example, where the song starts playing, and stuff like that. You have the musician, the gods, and then you have the dance instructor. I don't know. We didn't I said, let's do two lovers meeting in the corner or whatever. But yeah, I would say, you could say, I suppose, dance instructor. We actually didn't end up placing a soldier here because we had the entrances blocked there. But one of the fun things is later, as I was painting for the trailer, I painted a little scene, and then I had a little soldier here. That was the painting was interesting because I was trying to do barrack painting, but barrack paintings are so boring, man. They're so boring. Like European art starts going downhill after Renaissance. So boring until post-romantic. Yeah. So I'm not going to go on that rant.
Yeah, let's stay on topic here.
And then without even noticing, I'm just painting Impressionism, which wasn't the plan. But again, we didn't place that soldier there, unfortunately. Or it might have also been good because the soldiers here are kind of blocking the way anyway. You have this guy patrolling. You have this guy who's just talking to the other one. Also, the only poor soul who's slightly overweighted compared to every soldier.
I was going to say, all these soldiers are slightly different. They're in a different pose, or like they're doing something else.
Yeah, that was also one of the things to kind of gauge how much work we need to do stuff like these, right? You have soldiers around. You have the other soldiers. So obviously then there's the flags.
Yeah, the flags. We can't show them here, but the flags are animated in the game. So that's something totally new.
I actually did create a scene in Blender where the flags move because for the trailers we needed it. This is the actual flag of the Habsburgs, which got butchered because of resolution. So here comes I hope you guys are ready because this is the Easter egg. So there's a guy locked up here, which you might still see. I'm not sure if everyone got that, but it might still be visible. The thing that's like really hard to find is like if you look at our Easter egg map, right? There is a guy locked up, and there is a guy next to him climbing, right? So that's the only way maybe someone got it because it's very hidden. It's very hidden because it's this guy here climbing to rescue the other guy.
The little Robin Hood climbing up.
A little Robin Hood, yeah. We really hide it because it's so out of lore, man. What is Robin Hood doing there? But again, we really love that game, and I just looked at these vines, and it's like we need Robin Hood right there. Like he needs to. This is the entrance to the castle. It needs to be like there's no other way.
Nice.
So yeah, there's that one. Let's see what's the next. The next one is Valdštejn.
Valdštejn.
So obviously the car. We have little leaf particles here. I don't know if you guys noticed that. The car was very fun to do. One of the things that's interesting is like in this time, like usually when you're doing something in CG, right, you need to create realistic materials and light them up, right? It just happens that two people in our team can paint. It's me and Daniel. So we thought, why not just paint these details? So like just let's paint them. And a lot of the changes you see here are actually painted. For example, you might be able to notice when we really zoom in. This door was open and you could see a bit of the inside, but it wasn't perfect. So I closed that door, and instead of like coming up with materials and whatnot, I just painted it over. And unfortunately, I didn't even notice. Again, here it was open so you could see inside. I also painted that here.
You know what this is like, Shah? Back in this, even though we're in this world of like visual effects and CG, this is exactly like how movies used to be done, where they were painting the matte backgrounds, literally the backgrounds, the CG backgrounds that they had in front of behind the actors.
Yeah,
that was all painted. So that we're kind of combining the two.
Yeah, we are. It's just way faster. This is again like a little cloth material. So this was kind of open, and again, the inside wasn't pretty, so cut it out and then did this curtain. So we have a bunch of stuff like that where things are actually just painted. And the trees, by the way, man, that was such a big part of the production because we had to find a way to do trees. And oh man, I should have prepared that because we actually had shots of these gorgeous trees. I came up with this algorithm that, because there's a bunch of trees, right, that procedurally place these trees and the branches, and it was amazing. It looks gorgeous. But of course, no way in hell we're going to be able to run that in the game. So we had to find a way to place the trees there. And we ended up going with these things where we kind of create approximation of those trees in terms of geometry, and we just project those high quality trees on these approximations, so you can still see a bit of those leaves and proper lighting. But yeah, the good thing is with the new workflows that we have the ability to attach objects to our puzzle pieces without it being part of the puzzle itself. That means you don't have to worry anymore about doing bullshit. Pardon my language, by the way. I hope this is
We're gonna get censored on YouTube now. No, I think what you're trying to say is we've had quite a lot of early puzzles, especially where a big tree like this would get split up into like multiple pieces, and then those would become really difficult pieces to actually puzzle. So now we've come up with a new workflow where like all those pieces of the tree could be part of like one piece already pre-attached from the start.
Exactly.
But still at the full piece count, it would still be 100 pieces, 200 pieces. It wouldn't be like 98.
So we have here two other ladies, also hand painted.
What are they carrying?
So one of them is carrying an apple, and we did actually look it up. And in Bohemia, during this season of the time, there's a specific type of apple, and I did actually use the picture of that apple. Not that you can see it, but I want to remain authentic. So, and then the other one is carrying bread. So yeah, the idea is that these guys are going down to the town, and the Lord is coming home. And we thought about briefly placing animals here, like pigs and cows and whatnot. Kind of hard because we couldn't come up with a logistic of how they would take care of the animals so that they don't run away and this just doesn't look completely inconvenient. So here's the thing: you have these guys coming with a car, bringing various supplies to the castle. You have this guy doing his daily job. It's just
Just, by the way, rotate a little bit slower for the bit rate to keep up.
Yeah. You have here this guy who is just like cleaning the yard. One of the things that we also did here, a lot of the changes we do on the premium puzzles are actually not that visible to you because if they work, you're not supposed to notice. For example, these leaves have different colors, right? And this wasn't like that in the original mesh. I started painting in variation of colors in the leaves to help with puzzling. Same with, like in Sokol grass, certain areas have a slightly different tint of blue or green. And as I was playing these in 400 pieces, it does actually help. You're like, oh, these leaves are next to each other. So as I was painting them, I tried to add like these color cues that you might pick up and decide to use for your puzzling. He used it like a very judgy, buffed, ripped, what are they called? Chopper? No.
Well, he's chopping wood. I don't know if there's a title for that. Does anyone
What's
know?
the title? The Red Hood and the
Oh,
who comes to save the Red Hood? Yeah, here's the guy, by the way. Yeah, so we placed a bit of things so that he can chop wood, kind of judging the work of others. So here comes like the two Easter eggs that are kind of harder to find on this location. The kids that are playing hide and seek.
lumberjack.
Lumberjack.
Finally.
Here's the girl playing hide and seek. You should be able to see her relatively easy when you're playing. On 400 piece, of course, smaller one, no chance. And the question is now, okay, where is the boy? And my idea was kind of like, you see the girl, and then now you have to play hide and seek yourself. So go and find the boy. The boy is kind of here. This will be there.
Nice.
The kids of the Lord. So here are two Easter eggs that are actually not mentioned. It's not an Easter egg. I don't actually know what I painted there. I don't remember. It got butchered anyway. But this, there used to be a notice board, and I was like, okay, we can't have that. This is 1920s. It's not a museum. Another one was our sound designer asked me to put a chapel here where there are candles. So I actually put the candles in and painted in the lighting. But it got so tiny afterwards, and both him and me just completely forgot about it. So there's not even sound design around it. He wanted to have the garage half open, which we didn't have time for, unfortunately, next time, and have a car inside. But here's the other one that wasn't mentioned.
The final Easter egg of the hidden Easter egg.
The Easter egg of the Easter eggs. This is a thing for Cubism.
Yes.
One of the other.
The cover
Puzzle
of Cubism.
games. Yeah, which we enjoy playing. So yeah, this was Valdštejn, and next one would be Saba. Saba was the first location we did, and we were still like trying to figure out just how much of these things we are going to put in there. So, and it's such a huge location that these are all true Easter eggs, beside the sheep maybe. So you have the sheep here with a shepherd walking around. We're still trying to figure out the workflows here. Shadows are still hand painted, although we have better workflows for that right now. Here's a donkey. Like, if anyone has ever been to Middle East, we love donkeys, man. Like, donkeys go everywhere. So I was like, we need to have a donkey there. We need to have a donkey there, and we also need to have this weird combination of a shirt
and like some carpet on the donkey.
Yeah, garbage in a donkey, a shirt, and like tartan in the pants that are just all the way up here, like with like some sort of scarf. You see, Azad is laughing because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Course. So here's the guy there, coming from his business inside or whatever he was doing there. You have the tourist, which is also kind of hard to find, I suppose. Just contemplating. Yeah, I thought briefly about putting a woman in here, but we don't wanna disrespect any cultural heritage, like cultural customs or whatever.
You could have put one like sneaking in, like over the, like someone helping her,
like the Robin Hood. Yeah, but religious sites do take even the digital representations quite seriously in terms of like. They might ask you not to put people with shorts and hats and whatnot in their churches, and you scan it. So here is an Eastern Church priest. It looks quite different to the thing you might know from the Romanic Catholic priests.
You even got the belly right, man. It's like
I just looked up references, and it was either younger and a bit of belly or just 170 years old. So I was like, okay, let's go with the one who can still walk. And then one of my favorite in the entire pack, doing his daily job. He's just doing his thing. So I will be Saba. The last one is Sokol. For Sokol, we extra wanted to not have too many things in there because Sokol is about that lost beauty the impairments of power. So we didn't want to have too many things. Excuse the sudden movement. I just need to adjust the camera. We didn't want to have too many things going on in the puzzle, more like in the soundscape or landscape around it. That was one of the areas, the reasons why we have shadows the way we do, because the shadows casted on the thing is supposed to like create an idea of the environment around it more than anything. And I extra didn't want to have too many, like I didn't want to have 3 shadows being casted, because this is supposed to be a pretty high place. So maybe there's another peak casting shadow, but nothing else there. So yeah, we have the falcons or the eagle. I'm not an expert on that bird anatomy.
Yeah,
so
I think it's falcon. I think it's falcon. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't model these ones, so I don't know what reference was used, but I'm pretty sure it's falcon. So yeah, it looks very falcon with those.
Yeah.
So we have those. We have the tourists looking out into the distance.
If I'm remembering correctly from Daniel, this tourist has appeared in somewhere else, or maybe hasn't yet appeared. Maybe will appear. Maybe I'm spoiling.
Yeah, tourists will appear in other places too. So this guy is a running gag now along the Puzzlemaker
He's
locations.
like a hiker. Shows up in different environments.
In different environments. Yeah. So here's another one with a backpack sitting on the bench. And that's about it. Here you can see also a lot of painting jobs done. Like here, this location, this was open, right? This was open and goes to the other side. But I decided I had to close it because it didn't look good. Actually, Daniel closed it and I just painted over. I don't know what this is. I started thinking about, okay, how can I close this in a meaningful way? And then I was like, I don't know how. So I just closed it. Close it as if it's a stone wall. And then here on the other side is a door, which is slightly bent when you really pay attention because I painted it from one direction. But yeah, so there's a bunch of other stuff like that too. This is a really fun puzzle where we didn't put an Easter egg, but it is basically an Easter egg itself is this here.
Yeah, someone pointed out this area in Discord recently.
Yeah, it's a little station. I think it's a pretty nuts puzzle. I really enjoyed it. It is a difficult puzzle, of course, because of the stones and stuff like that. But I did do things like add different colors here as there, like subtle different colors, which you don't notice the first hour or two as you're playing, but suddenly it just clicks here. Like you look at the stones and you're like, oh, that's that area. This goes here, that goes there. So yeah, this was our news pack and some of the efforts we have put in. The things that, of course, we haven't covered, but we have covered in previous dev chats, which you can go and look at, is the work we put in on the sound side of things, which was even more so now because sound designer can do even more because we are coming up with directions pretty early on. And the rest is just putting our love and soul into kind of telling kind of our own story on top of existing ones, right? We don't want to fight with these locations. Our first top priority is always find a fun puzzle that we would enjoy playing ourselves and we think our audience would enjoy too. And on top of that, we think about how can we enhance the already existing stories in there in a unique, interesting way. And that has been our efforts.
Yeah, this was our first showcase of like a really big premium puzzle pack. What we want to do with it, how we approach it. I hope you all really enjoyed playing it and also listening to it. You can totally use this video as a audio podcast to listen to maybe as you're playing or before or after you play it. That's definitely the thinking that goes behind it. We are working on new puzzle packs. We will be announcing them, or at least kind of hinting them in our roadmap channel. So I should be updating that soon with what's coming up next. So next month is a monthly pack. We haven't yet announced the name of that, but now we also know what's coming the month after, which I guess I can say it here. It's going to be the Ukrainian pack. At least that's if everything goes well in terms of our production with the Ukrainian team. We're already working on that, so that's going to be really interesting. But before the Ukrainian pack, and in between the monthly pack, we have one free puzzle, one new, really awesome, also premium, very similar to what you just saw here, a premium free puzzle that we're going to be putting as free DLC. So I guess everyone that has the game will be able to play it both on Quest and PlayStation, and we're really excited about that. Shah here and my colleague Daniel K have been working on that for quite a while. That should have its own dev chat too. I think there's so many little details that you guys have been adding that will be really interesting to point out. What else? We're working on multiplayer. We're working on one other feature also that will come like much sooner than multiplayer. We should announce it soon. We might need some help on testing things as well. So if you're interested, we'll also make announcements around that. But yeah, there's a lot happening, both content, game. Like we're really happy that you all are here and like playing the game with us. We're close to our launch, actually, like being a full year away. We're in July now, so I guess we're 10 months away. We've been live for 10 months. Maybe we should do something fun for our year anniversary. So I don't know. We haven't really thought about it, but
we haven't thought about it much. We do have another free puzzle lined up if things go well, beside the ones that you just announced. Around a certain holiday.
Yeah.
But it is on the plan. We even have the location we want to do. We know exactly what we want to do with it, but it's still not in the works. But the other one, the free puzzle that I just talked about, is done. I love it. I absolutely love it. Like the location is mind-boggling itself. We have started putting a lot of details on it. We have started putting very interesting animations on it. That's way more complicated than anything we have done. I had to do a lot of technical wizardry to get that working the way I wanted to. And our sound designer said it's good, which usually he's like, yeah, okay, it's done. And then I'm blown away. So this time he was like, this is good. I was like, I can't wait to play it. I still haven't played it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I hope you guys will enjoy it too.
Same. It is it's a puzzle with an interior and an exterior, which I know you all really love. So that is also, just from that already, it's a special puzzle, but it has like 3 extra layers of specialness to it. It's from also a new country that we haven't had a puzzle from, so that's great, from a new part of the world that we have had some puzzles from there, but anyway, we'll show that when it comes soon enough. So a new monthly pack number 4 is coming in around 2 weeks. Yeah, not this Thursday, but 2 Thursdays from this week. Then the free puzzle will come a few weeks after that, and then the Ukrainian one a few weeks after that. So I hope you all are happy with the amount of puzzles we're making, because we heard you in the beginning when, like, you know, the first couple of months after the game came out, you were like, the game is great, but please give us more puzzles. And we're like, we really, really want to, but there's like so many things we needed to do, the PlayStation launch, the refactoring, etc., etc. So now that we're set up, I think we're just working on fulfilling the potential of the full game. So yeah, I'm happy with where we are. Great. Is there anything else we should add, Shah? Anything you want to...
If there are any questions, we can answer.
Yeah, if you have questions, definitely leave them in the event chat or the YouTube comments as well later on. Yeah, this was great. I mean, this was a big one for us. This was quite also our experimental from our end in terms of like, okay, how much time should we dedicate for a premium puzzle? How many months was this, Shah? Like 2 or 2.5, 3?
3 months.
3 months.
So the plan was to do a 3 months. So for the production itself, a month and a half to 2 usually for the premium is our plan right now. We are talking to at least a week per puzzle. But we, of course, then depending on the puzzle, so far some of them required less work, some of them required more work. Valdštejn, for example, required a lot of work because we had to do R&D around trees, like how we're going to get the trees in, as well as all the different locations, like all the tiny stories needed work to be done. So we usually have to fix these meshes a bit, like the models that we get, as we have talked in the previous dev chats, are not perfect, so we have to do a lot of fixing on them. And on top of that, then we start telling this story. So yeah, 3 months, also including things like the trailer. We did a different trailer than we usually do, more around the themes of the puzzle, which is this historical importance. We kind of like framed it in a museum. You go in, So that all took a lot of production time. Like not a lot, but like it was a week, which is more than what we usually put in our video trailers and stuff like that. I hid a bunch of Easter eggs in the trailer too, which no one's ever gonna find, and I'm not even gonna say it.
I love it. This is becoming really layered with the amount of things we're hiding everywhere. I like it. I like it. This is how games typically are, you know? You gotta have all these things.
I know. We have even more plans for Easter eggs in the future.
Of course.
Wink, wink. Maybe a hidden puzzle here and there. Let's see what we're gonna do. Still nothing in plan, but
yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, thank you all for joining us and watching us and participating. And we're excited to do more of these. If you're interested in more dev chats, just stick around and we'll read our announcements page. We'll let you know when there's another one coming up and we'll schedule it and you all can join. So thank you, Shah, for joining us, or for joining me. And thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.